Welcome to the ConArts Show, the best variety show on the internet.
Here we have our beloved historian, talk with us about the American culture. Let us all welcome Miss Francine, Mr. Joshua, Miss Van, Mr. Clarence, Miss Nicole, and lastly, Miss Jasmine, Mr. Ryan. Historians, good morning.
Let's start with a few questions. What's life like in American and post-colonization period?
Good day to everyone. I am Francine, your historian for the American colonial period. Even though decades, centuries, and time have passed, we can never deny the fact that the Philippines is prone to colonizers. A series of events have happened in either good or bad circumstances. From Spanish to American colonizers, the Philippine system has undergone significant change. When the Americans completely conquered the Philippines in 1898, influences from various sets of arts began to spread throughout our country. From paintings, sculptures, and architecture, Americans have brought glory and power to the Philippines' art. Dignified poses, realist paintings, and intricate designs by Americans are behind all of that. They are the ones who made the Filipinos realize that art goes beyond that term, beyond what we see, feel, and imagine. Art is within us, and they want us to foresee the aesthetic of different landscapes and the people. One great painter was hailed between 1892 and 1972 as a juvenile individual swayed by the beauty of art through painting. He depicted a more realistic and contradictory concept behind a white linen cloth. Fernando Solo, a portraitist and realist painter in his day, he made a huge impact in depicting what a rural and simple life we have here in the Philippines. He was able to showcase the bountiful land we have, the magnificent rays of the sun, and the various colors reflecting the whole portrait of our Solo. He was known for his ever-smiling dalagang bukid and was later on called Country Maiden. Through this masterpiece, he was able to share the ideal aesthetic of a Filipina in American times. Due to this simple yet appreciative outlook on art, he was able to enter into advertising and book design that were highly influenced by the Americans. He designed the Marcang Demonyo for Ginebra San Miguel, which was a local alcoholic drink in those times. Since then, he has been hailed as the first national artist of the Philippines. From the years 1890 to 1976, a man with a classical style has yet to conquer the field of sculpting, garnering different sets of awards due to the dignified poses of his masterpiece. From wood to art, it is not just a mission, but rather a passion. Solo's equal is Guillermo Tolentino, a classical sculptor and an equal of Solus, but from a different perspective. He was commissioned to portray discipline, order, and restraint through sculpture. His works are full of sundry emotions and ordeals that embrace the difficulties and danger of revolutions. He was known for his oblation. This masterpiece was used by one of the state universities called the University of the Philippines. It portrayed the value of accepting new knowledge and altering it with discipline and proper orders. He was also known for his Bonifacio Monument, which portrays the diverse phases of oppression, hardships, and revolution during Bonifacio's time. It basically implies being resilient in the midst of wars and storms. Just like Solo, he was declared the National Artist of Visual Art in the Philippines. The American influence on the Filipinos was profound. It opened a new door to more intricate yet sustainable design that upholds the value of stability and quality. The neoclassical period was profoundly known as the Classical Revival. It was a combination of Greek and Roman classical architecture in the year 1925. It usually has a grandiose, symmetrical composition and facade balustrated balconies and a triangular pediment. The Philippines applied it to one of their national buildings, the Manila Post Office, the Old Senate, and the National Museum of the Philippines. It imposes the beauty of simplicity, elegance, and timely detailing. Since then, the Philippine government's architecture aligned their goals and design to neoclassical structures. From the past up until present times, Americans were not as bad as everyone thought. It is a fact that they have influenced us to a greater good. Once again, I am Francine, your historian for American colonial period. Thank you.
That was a very interesting topic, Ms. Francine. Moving on, the introduction of dance and the American post-colonial period. Mr. Joshua, go ahead.
Hello my dear viewers, it's me, Joshua, your dance historian, and I am about to explain the Philippine dance in the American period. In the year 1898 is the start of the 48 years of colonization of the Americans in the Philippines. Inevitably, the Americans entering the Philippines brought with it their cosmopolitan and commercial culture. Their black-influenced music and dances appealed to the Terpsichorean bent of the Filipinos. Filipinos already schooled in the Zarzuela, but because of the American colonization, they also found fascination in the vaudeville, later called the stage show, which is a mix of the theatrical minstrel and circus acts that attracted both the elite and the masses. The cakewalk, buck and wing, skirt dance, clog, tap, and soft shoe are a few of the dances that Filipinos were influenced by the Americans. They were all performed in the Zarzuela theaters, and later in the cinema shows. Social dances were also brought by the Americans and became part of the repertoire on stage, such as the Charleston, Foxtrot, Big Apple, One Step, Slow Drag, and the famous Latin-influenced tango, rumba, samba, mambo, and cha-cha. Because of the improved transportation, the Philippines became part of the main international circuit, and with that, Filipinos increasingly experienced the ballet. In 1901, the Lilliputians graced the Zarzuela with ballet girls. The Japanese Infantile Company brought a Japanese ballet to the Teatro Oriental. In 1902, the Borovsky Imperial Russian Circus advertised 25 ballet beauties in a mammoth production. In 1922, Anna Pavlova graced the Manila Grand Opera House, prodding local Filipinas to study ballet. Among this was Anita Kane, who trained with Katrina Makarova, a Russian refugee. Others were Mara Salheim, Carmen MacLeod, and most importantly, Madame Nova Adamek. In 1937, another Austrian, Trodel Dobsky, joined her groom, conductor Herbert Zipper, in Manila. She founded Manila Ballet Moderne, where many Filipinos apprenticed themselves. She choreographed in the Western idiom and performed at the Manila Metropolitan Theater. Later, she directed operas, including Carmen in Tagalog. In 1939, Kane staged Maria Makiling with composer Ramon Tapenes. She later followed this with more Philippine-inspired ballets, together with the ballet classics. Much later, Oteiza choreographed abstract ballets allied to the musical forms of Grieg, Tchaikovsky, Frank Rachmaninoff, Rimsky-Korsakov, Ravel, and the Filipino Rodolfo Cornejo. Even after the Philippines obtained independence from the United States in 1946, American influence still lingered, not just in the Philippines, but also around the world. So, if you are wondering why your Lola and Lolo are great at dancing rumba and cha-cha, it is mainly because it is one of their generation's greatest dance trends.
Thank you, sir. For a break, let us welcome Miss Bea and Mr. Clarence to showcase the latest fashion in American colonial and post-colonial period.
Mr. Clarence. Let us now continue with the fashion.
Hi everyone, I'm Cassandra and I'm here to introduce to you what was fashion during American colonization. But before that, let me introduce to you what was fashion before American came here. So before American came here, in the Philippines, Spaniard is the one who came first. So Spanish era brought about Spanish ethnics which influenced women to wear skirt called saya and a blouse called baro. To describe American fashion apart from a professional attire, American fashion is our emblematic of specifically American style. American colonists wear a plain leather shoes, wide brim hats, and coats or capes for protection in the cold or rain. So during American colonization, the women wore the traje de mestiza, more modern version of Maria Clara. It had a bigger sleeves and a narrower floor-length skirt with a long train called saya de cola, while the men wore the Americana, their suits and coats replacing the barong Tagalog. By the 1920s, the style of the skirt still remained, influenced by the flapper dress. However, the wide sleeves had been flattened to butterfly sleeve, and the big panuelo reduced its size. Some Filipino women who had lived in the United States and Europe wore the Western 1920s fashion with the loose dresses and kneeling skirt. Now, we know what was fashion during American colonization.
The clothing style and fashion sense of the Filipinos in the modern-day era has been influenced by our native ancestors, the Spanish colonizers and the American colonizers. As proof, we have evidence by the chronology of events that occurred in the Philippine history. In today's generation, we can clearly see that the Americans influence us when it comes to fashion. Outfits that are inspired by the American celebrities, some influential people in Hollywood that are being looked up to, and for example, there is an outfit that became popular in the US, and after a while, there would be some manufacturers of clothing that would recreate the exact replica of that clothing or even just a resemblance. Then after a few days, you can see Filipinos, teenagers, and people of any age going with that trend. The Americans have always had a great taste of fashion. The Filipino climate has been a factor for us to wear clothing that are not too hot for the skin and for the body because we are in a tropical country where the weather is usually hot and humid. A common fit that is often worn would be t-shirt, jeans, short, or skirts. This outfit combination has been influenced to us by the Americans to the Filipinos. American clothing brands can be seen in any mall all over the country, and usually that is where most of the people buy their clothing and they would create an outfit for it. I can say that the fashion sense of the Americans before and now has always been an inspiration to us Filipinos because they have a great sense of style.
Thank you, historians. Our tutorials already showcase their wits and talents. We have two more to amaze us with information that they have. Narrowing down to our fourth tutorial to give us a glimpse of the period's music. The spotlight is yours now, Miss Nicole.
Hey there, my name is Nicole Ann and I am one of the many historians for today's show. I'll be talking about the music in the Philippines during the American colonization up to the post-colonial times. The music of the Philippines prior to the arrival of the Americans was heavily influenced by the Spaniards, and it mostly centered on paraliturgical and secular genres of music. Now, fast forward onto the American colonization up to the post-colonial times. The Philippines was introduced to a wide variety of genres of music, ranging from folk, classical and symphony tunes, to jazz, rock and roll, and rhythm and blues. During the time of the American colonization, the Filipinos listened to tunes heavily influenced by the Americans through jukeboxes, vinyl records, and AM radios. Music was integrated into the curriculum at the elementary and later high school levels in the newly constructed public education system. At the tertiary level, music conservatories and colleges were founded. These schools produced the first generation of Filipino composers who wrote in Western idioms and forms. The Filipinos during this time were taught skills that catered to the Western or American style of music. The language used in the songs was also in English, the lingua franca of the Yankees, or better known as the Americans. During the post-colonial time, the music of the Philippines is still reeling from the influences left by the Americans and the Spaniards, though the Philippines started to grow and develop from that. We started to slowly create our own identity in terms of music. The people started to sing lyrics in the language of our own, Tagalog. Some songs that were in English were adapted into Tagalog, and Filipinos started to compose and produce songs in Tagalog with hints of rock and roll sound from the Americans and a little speck of Spanish-influenced tunes. The names such as Kundiman Divas, Pilita Corrales, Ricardo Rick Manrique Jr., and Ruben Tagalog were some of the pioneers during this time. Moreover, during these periods of the past, the Philippines underwent a lot of changes in terms of music. Yet, most of them are eternal pieces that are still with us today and that we still keep on reliving from time to time. On that note, we've now reached the end of the music segment of this show, and I will now be saying my goodbyes. Hopefully, you got to learn something from what I've shared.
That was amazing. But before we get out as to the music, let's now proceed on the last story that we have today. Show us what Vaudeville is like in the American post-colonial period. Let's hear from Miss Jasmine and Mr. Ryan.
Nice to meet you, everyone. I am Jasmine and I'm with my partner, Ryan. We would like to explain how the Americans influenced the Filipino about vaudeville during the American colonial period. The vaudeville in the Philippines, or it can also be referred as vaudeville, was a stage performance that had numerous forms such as musical theater, comedic, magic acts, skits, monologues, acrobatics, and among other things. The Manila Dramatic Guild created the first vaudeville in 1898 for the sole purpose of entertaining the American soldiers and Americans in Manila. It was also the first time since the Revolution that a theatrical performance had taken place. The stage acts, which originated as circus intermission numbers are placed in local theaters, dealt with a variety of subjects including Philippine heroes, people, and way of life. These performers contributed to the popularity of jazz and blues in the country. Luis Borromeo, a Cebuano known as Borromeo Lu, was one of the first Filipino performers to regionalize this style of music. He returned from America and Canada and was first to introduce classic jazz music to the country. He is credited with coining the word vaudeville, which was later shortened to vaudeville.
While vaudeville was undoubtedly popular and somewhat indigenized from vaudeville, it was hardly indigenous to the Philippines and was seen as a symbol of American culture pervasiveness in the country. Many of the cultural trends it popularized were Western or American in origin, though the interpreters were largely Filipino. At the same time, the emergence of vaudeville led to the fall of many earlier and equally colonial types of theatrical entertainment such as comedia and zarzuela. Vaudeville effects on Filipino culture is arguably still felt today. Its eclectic mix of songs and dance number can be seen on television variety shows and even intermission songs at political rallies. It featured a hodgepodge of musical numbers, short-form comedy, and dramatic skits, and even magic acts often staged inside the theaters of Manila. Vaudeville proved the vehicle for the popularization of music trends and musicians, performance, genres, and performers.
Also really interesting, Miss Jasmine and Mr. Ryan. Mr. Ryan, we already heard from all the historians that we have today. As much as we wanted to know more about the life in American colonial period, sadly, we don't have ample time to continue. To our dear historians, thank you for spending your time with us to have fun and share these unforgettable facts and information about the American post-colonial period.
I really appreciate you all coming to the show, historians. Also, for our dearest audience, thank you for watching and see you guys on the next episode of ConArts Show, the best variety show on the internet. Bye!